Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aisha Varma. Europe is looking with concern and mixed feelings at the planned meeting in Alaska between United States President Trump and Russian President Putin. DW's Thomas Sparrow in Berlin has more on how European leaders have reacted to the meeting. What are the main points defended by Ukraine's European allies?
Since the beginning of the Ukraine war, of that full-scale invasion by Russia, a war that, by the way, has been now ongoing for over 3 years, European countries stood directly by Ukraine, essentially defending Ukraine's position politically, economically, also militarily, and at the same time asking for pressure to be increased on Russia for what they have described time and time again as an illegal invasion. And if you fast forward to the situation now, what European leaders specifically want is for any kind of political discussion to end the war in Ukraine, to include Ukraine's position and also to include Europe's security interests. Europe sees that it plays a very important role in trying to bring this conflict to an end, but also that the war in Ukraine affects very seriously its own security interests. So when you look at the meeting that is planned in Alaska between US President Trump and Russian President Putin, that's essentially what European leaders want, for Ukraine's interests and Europe's interests to also be on the table when it comes to discussing any kind of deal to end the war in Ukraine. Now, specifically when we talk about Ukraine's interests, one element that has been discussed is the issue of territorial integrity. And the main concern there from a European perspective is the possibility of there being any kind of territory exchanges between Russia and Ukraine. This is something that Ukraine rejects and that for Europe would be a very difficult and very dangerous precedent, because it would essentially mean, in Europe's view, that Russia can invade a neighboring country, that Russia can invade Ukraine and change borders by force, which European leaders have stressed time and time again would be a violation of international law.
How do European leaders view the planned Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska?
Several European leaders actually issued a statement in which they supported Donald Trump's attempts to find a solution to the war in Ukraine. This is something that they have also reiterated. At the same time, there is a bit of a problem with the potential content of any agreement, specifically when it comes by only President Trump and President Putin discussing it in Alaska. As I stress, it's particularly vital for Europeans and for Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky that any kind of deal actually includes Ukraine and includes the Europeans, specifically when it comes to this discussion of potentially swapping territories or even also having the possibility of a ceasefire, because again, here there seem to be differences. While there is a discussion of potentially finding a deal that would lead to a ceasefire, many European leaders have actually said that they would prefer a ceasefire to be the precondition of any deal that comes afterwards. So what this actually shows us is that while there is support for Donald Trump's attempts to find a solution to the war in Ukraine, there is still a long way ahead when it comes to actually finding all those details that could benefit the different parties, the different players, and could bring this conflict to an end. A conflict, again, that has been taking place now in Ukraine for over 3 years.
How close do you think international leaders are of agreeing to a plan to stop the war in Ukraine?
Well, the meeting in Alaska between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin is definitely an important step. It's not the first step that international leaders have attempted in order to bring this conflict to an end, this war to an end. So it is essentially an important step that could bring any discussion forward. But from a European perspective, I think it is very clear that this is only one step out of many that still need to be taken in order to find an agreement that is suitable for all parties, that is suitable for Russia, that is suitable for Vladimir Putin, but that is also suitable specifically for Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky, for the Ukrainians and also for the Europeans. Again, some of the issues that are particularly vital when it comes to finding an agreement, a ceasefire, is ceasefire then obviously any kind of peace negotiation, then the issue of territorial integrity that we've also been discussing. Those are only 3 out of many aspects that have to be discussed. So if the question is how close we are to finding an end to the conflict in Ukraine, I would say we're still far, but steps are at least being taken in that direction. However, for European leaders, and among them German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, it does seem that a lot still needs to be discussed, that a lot still needs to be actually brought to the negotiating table before this war can actually end and before actually all the different parties have an agreement that is suitable to them. So an important step, but very probably more steps will be needed as well.
All right, well, with that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for watching.